I got Marley Silverbrand back on the show for another episode of Old Man Orange Podcast, and we were talking about, we had the prom night, I guess, issue that sometimes happens, and this, I'll say this is not the first time that's happened where we go into a movie and then someone's like, wait a second, which version are we watching and whatnot?
Yeah.
And now granted, Marley did his due diligence homework of that when in doubt, watch both.
I took the bullet. I took the bullet for both of us and just watched both of these films, the remake, the 2008, and then the original 1980 version. But thanks for having me, Spencer.
No problem, Marley. I wanted to have you come back on, and we're like, let's do like a Halloween thing. And I was like, yeah, okay, that sounds like a fun one. And then I'm like, you know what's a movie that I pulled out a couple movies, but I was like, one that like. I feel bad for actually not seeing it. I literally have it on VHS somewhere behind me, but I didn't want to go tearing through my nicely set up, I know it's somewhere in the deep depths of there, but I do have it. And I was like, you know what? Prom Night's one of those ones that I feel like I should have watched by this point, and I never have. I'm like, and then you said you didn't watch it. I'm like, well, let's do that then. That's always kind of fun. We can both go into this and see what it's all about, see what we've been missing for the last 40 years.
Yeah, I honestly, I've knew, these movies, existed, but the only knowledge that I've had for, the original Prom Night was from Scream. I think isn't it when Drew Barrymore is on the phone, and that's one of the questions that she is asked, and she's like, oh, Prom Night. And then that's kind of, that's the reference. That's what Wes Craven put into the first Scream, so that's really my only knowledge of these films. So I definitely had a pretty decent time going into it, and it's always nice seeing Jamie Lee Curtis whenever she pops up in anything. So but
yeah, well, it's kind of cool in the olden days when Jamie Lee Curtis was in all the horror movies, Halloween, and then of course Prom Night, and then there's one called Terror Train that always looks kind of cool. It's I don't know, horror movie. So something about trains. Trains always get me in movies. If there's a train in a movie, I'm already sold. If there's a train in a video game level, I'm sold. It doesn't take a whole lot for some reason. You combine trains with snow. Remember the Snowpiercer game? I was like, it's my two favorite things: a snow setting and trains.
So I'm guessing Spirit Tracks is your favorite Zelda game then?
I feel so bad. I never played that one. I should have.
It's pretty good for an on-rails Zelda game.
On-rails Zelda game. I know that's those two DS ones are the only ones I feel like I've never really played, ironically, out of all the Zelda games I own and so on.
I've played them, but I've never actually finished them because... there's something about handheld Zelda that just doesn't I'm not saying that they're bad, but I don't go to a handheld to play a Zelda game. And I know that's kind of a little ironic because Breath of the Wild is on Switch, and Switch is a dedicated handheld at that point. But yeah, it's I don't know, for some reason they just never scratched that itch for me. So.
Yeah, I mean, now Link's Awakening back on original Game Boy, that was always that big deal game, I remember. So I always have ultimate nostalgia for that. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. When you want to go on a big adventure, it's kind of why don't we go on a handheld here? I want to have this on my big screen, and so on like that, get the full tilt experience. I just feel kind of bad because I got that new Zelda game too, and I literally started up and then I haven't got back to it. I was like, I'll get to it.
I don't have a Switch right now, so I've been kicking myself for not I'm in that point where it's just I'm waiting for Nintendo to announce the Switch 2, which it's been, or whatever the next Switch is going to be, because I know that it's going to be backwards compatible with that and probably going to run better. So I'm like, do I get an off-market Switch on Facebook Marketplace and just play the new Zelda game, or do I wait? And I'm just Nintendo is just taking their sweet ass time because they're let's wring this Switch sponge out through the holiday season just one last time. So
yeah, one more. By the time it comes out, it'll be PS6 will be coming out right behind. You know what I mean? It's gonna be that long. It's just gonna skip an entire generation.
And then everyone's gonna be Switch is underpowered, and I'm like, whatever.
It's always going to be like that.
Anyways.
Yeah. As I said, I just feel kind of bad because it's like the one thing I've always wanted in a Zelda game is they're like, oh, I got to play as Zelda, and then it's like, and then I felt bad. I'm like, yeah, I started up, and then like next thing you know, I'm back to playing Tomb Raider or something again. It's like, I'll get back to it.
Yeah.
So
it's funny though. You started off the conversation talking about Prom Night, and then we just
diverged and
kind of how I approached actual prom night, because I didn't go to my prom. I just
you just diverged, went into Zelda. You know what I mean? It's probably better, anyways. Let's be honest. Like, you play some Zelda, you're gonna have a much better time and whatnot, and then the chances of getting killed is much less.
Yes, very much. So.
If there's anything we learn from these movies and so on like that, you don't want to be there. Granted, you have to. There has to be an action that happens first that sets this all into play. The killers don't just kill for no reason.
The chances of you getting killed and the chances of you killing your friends, like what happens in the beginning of this movie, are slim to none. So if you just play Zelda, so
yeah. If you don't, you'd be like a bunch of 10-year-old kids playing in an old abandoned factory or whatever.
That's the funniest thing about this movie, just because it's so 80s. It's so 80s, because if this movie were made today, like, you wouldn't have like these kids running around in like an old abandoned building, and like the way when that kid gets killed and they're like, oh, we can't tell anyone. Just leave the body.
Yeah, like no one's gonna figure it out.
You're telling me that the parents didn't come back and like started freaking out, and like when they flash forward like 6 years, it's like, oh, it's okay. Like, you killed your friend, that's fine. Go to prom. Have a great time.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like that one guy knows. He's like, I'm literally dating the sister here, and I know what's up. I saw it happen, so I gotta play this cool. But yeah, it's like one of those ones. Well, it's like, and you even say it's like it's so 80s. The thing about this movie is like literally 1980. It's shot in 79, and I didn't really think about it, but like, to me, it's like extraordinarily 70s, because it's like that thing where, at first you'd be like, okay, we're getting into like an 80s movie and so on, but then you go into it, you're like, oh no, this movie's like hardcore 70s. It's like literally like almost like end of the era type thing. I mean, so much so that like disco is a major element of this movie, especially if you watch the trailer. Boy, it's like that tells you 100%. Dude, the trailer's great. Dude, the trailer's like hardcore disco infused.
That's. Do you get more of the Jamie Lee Curtis just dancing, which made this movie just like instantly rewatchable for me? I wasn't gonna rewatch it, but as soon as I saw Jamie Lee Curtis dancing, I'm like, okay, I'm down. Yeah,
you didn't know you were getting Saturday Night Fever Jamie Lee Curtis style, did you? I didn't either, and I was very blown away by that. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay, here we go. Yeah, she definitely comes in and just like, she's like, oh, I need to have a dance number in between. We're going to make this happen. We got the disco dancing floor and everything like that, what I also thought was going to be in there more is because I actually thought there was going to be some more Kiss stuff, because there's like a bunch of Kiss merchandise just hung up in this school. Like, this school is literally sponsored by Kiss. Like, there's in the cafeteria, there's a ginormous Kiss poster or banner just hanging there. And then like, at first, like, there's some parts in like the locker room where like one guy opened up the locker and it was kind of blurry, but I'm like, there's all four of the Kiss members right there. I can see that sticker right off the bat. But then I didn't expect the giant banner later on.
Clearly, they shot at a Kiss merchandise table, and they're just like, Kiss, did you get your shit out of here? And they're like, no. Fine, we'll just shoot around you.
I'm like, boys, this could become like Rock and Roll High School all of a sudden. Just like, when the Ramones show up in that one, is Kiss going to show up at the end here and like fight off the Prom Night monster?
You know what? I would endorse that heavily, to be honest. We need more slasher movies featuring heavy metal like screamo bands. Like,
just metal in general.
Yeah. Do we have any of that? Do we have any? Like, can you name
there is some of them, because Dee Snider does have a few like horror movies that he's in. I actually just watched one not too long. It was only a couple years ago. But granted, Dee Snider is just a talking head, so it's not like he's acting in it. But he was in that one. But there's another one like in 1998 that's supposed to be really good that my friend Buddy was telling me about, where it's like Dee Snider's like a serial killer guy, like, and it's like all about like scary chat rooms on the internet since it's like that's like the brand new thing, and he's like bringing people in to like kill them and whatnot. I'm like, oh, that sounds badass. And then even speaking of Gene Simmons, and there's like a movie out there too. I think they're just cameos in it, but like the DVD case sells it like they're totally in it. But it's got Gene Simmons and Ozzy Osbourne and like some I think it's a horror movie of some kind. But like they probably once again you probably be very misled. You're gonna turn the movie on, watch an hour of it before they probably pop in there, and then finally here they are.
And then you got Rob Zombie, of course, doing whatever he's doing. So he's
doing
not
all this
technically metal, but
he's metal.
So
yeah, he's metal.
Would you clarify? Okay, I'll clarify him as metal. So
yeah, metal has a wide range, but I don't know what else you would clarify him as.
Well, yeah, okay, true.
Yeah, as I say, he's probably too hard for rock. I mean, yeah, I know metal can get heavier and heavier, but yeah, yeah. So there is all that kind of stuff, But yeah, this Prom Night, yeah, as I said, they doubled down on the Disco Inferno era. It definitely has that old school 70s vibe. And it's one of those ones that I will say it's a movie that there would be a lot of people that could watch this one, and you would almost, if you weren't in the right mindset of knowing like when it's made, its historical values, yada, 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 you could kind of see this movie and go, oh, it just seems kind of generic and basic. I'm like, yeah, because this is like one of those ones that started that whole like concept of the slashers and so on. I mean, granted, there's the Giallo movies from, you got all those ones from Italy and so on that kind of come in there. But this is right when all the American movies start up here. You had Halloween, you got Prom Night going in here. Friday the 13th comes out right before this one does. So this is like that big start of like when we start to get this wave of these movies coming in.
This is that. I'm kind of glad that I actually watched this one first before, because I haven't seen Friday the 13th, and I watched Halloween for the first time last year.
You're getting the first experiences of all these ones.
I know, right? I don't know. I just have like a really. I'm not like opposed like watching like slasher movies. I'll watch pretty much anything, but for some reason I just haven't like Scream is like the only like actual slasher movie that I actually fully loved, even though it's not technically a slasher movie, because it's like kind of like parodying like the slasher movies that came before it or the ones that came after it as well, kind of like paving the road for it. But I generally had a good time like with Prom Night, more than the remake actually, because the remake is just it's more dull, and you don't get any of the consequences that happen to these characters in the original version. I think having like that death at the beginning, it adds like, oh, like these characters, something's bad can happen to these characters. In the remake, it's really just this killer shows up to Prom Night and just kills these kids, and I'm like, yeah,
that's it.
There needs to be some stakes or anything like that. So
yeah, as I said, I watched that trailer and I was wondering that. I'm like, what was the beginning part like the 10 years beforehand in 1998? I was waiting for that moment, like the appear of like, oh, these kids were in, where would they be if there's abandoned in 1998? That they could shove some kid out a window.
It does have Idris Elba though. So
that's cool.
Positive, so
yeah, so there's always a positive, you know what I mean? Yeah, I mean the movie already is kind of like seems like a downer right from the beginning when it says PG-13 in the trailer. Yeah. It's like how the PG-13 slasher. I mean, not saying you can't do a PG-13 horror, because there's some really good ones that are PG-13, but when it comes to a slasher, the whole point of slasher is you're supposed to get a little bit of violence and so on like that, and some gore, and if you're
it's right in the name actually. What are you slashing in PG-13?
Yeah, exactly. You know,
slashing those prices. Thanks, Joe Budden. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Slashing them down.
Cut the inflation down.
Yeah, cut it for Joe Biden stars in Prom Night 4. Like, what happened to 3? Don't worry.
You know what? I will fully endorse. Like,
I just want to see where this goes. Like, feel like that's what he wants to do when he's done being a president. Yeah, he really wants to star in these old slasher movies, but he wants to be in sequels only.
It's like the opposite of Ronald Reagan. It's like he became a politician first, and then
he's like, my whole goal was to get into movies. It took me like 86 years to get here or whatever, but I'm finally doing what I've always wanted.
Prom Night 4 starts off with Joe Biden, like he's so proud of his granddaughter for going to prom, and then he sends her to prom and realizes the mistake that he makes, and then goes to save her, and he basically like takes down like the prom night killer.
You know that kind of concept you mentioned there in the original Prom Night, Leslie Nielsen's in there. I was really hoping he was going to be like that character that comes in at the very, because he plays Jamie Lee Curtis's dad, and this is still like in this era where like when he used to be like a serious actor, you know, before he gets to like all the super like the extreme comedy movies. So like it's like I was kind of expecting, but he actually, for the fact that he has top billing in this movie, he's actually not in it that much.
Yeah, I was actually surprised. Like, I was like, when he showed up, I was like, oh, sweet. And then he just kind of like disappears, like halfway through the movie for like no reason whatsoever. But I expected him to come up at the end to kind of do like what I said, like Joe Biden would do, kind of like
So sort of save the day at the end. I mean, like I do give it credit though, because it does give like. Because it's Jamie Lee Curtis, she does, like, you know, kick ass. It's not like, you know, in other horror movies where, you know, there's just a girl screaming in the corner and whatnot, not doing anything about it. Or, like, you know, that's like Night of the Living Dead 1.
She's the original final girl.
Yeah, so she's the one that's like, yeah, I'll slam a chair over him like it's pro wrestling. I don't care.
That was insane. Literally insane.
I also like too that like 'cause there's some great characters I will say in here that you know that stand out even like one I love there's this bully character in here that literally just looks like bully jacked up version of Tom Cruise. That's just like I'm like dude like this guy could be like Tom Cruise's like mean man stand-in. He even has like the unibrow going too that Tom Cruise used to have.
Yeah. That's a good description, but also another good description. This is why I love like these early 80s, late 70s like type movies, because it brings me back to the days when 40-year-olds played high schoolers, and they're not even 40 in this. They're more like approaching 50 at this point, just because the fact that Jamie Lee Curtis still looks good. The fact that she's supposed to be like a 16-year-old is
Well, I looked it up what she was. So she was 21 during filming. So she's not ridiculous.
What?
Yeah. Because that was the first thing I did when I turned the movie off. I'm like, how old was she? Out of curiosity, you know, it's just that thing. People looked older back then too. Like, so I think it's a double whammy. Like, so that Tom Cruise stand-in guy is probably like 19. He's just done a lot of cigarettes and drinking.
All that cocaine and drugs and just.
You know, well, and Jamie Lee Curtis, she always kind of has an older, like even as like a teenager, she literally looks like somebody's mother.
Yeah, very, very much so.
Yeah,
or just a milf gilf.
Yeah, so. You know, she just looks like she's supposed to be in True Lies. Totally. But yeah, no, she's still like in here doing badass and stuff and whatnot. Gets her disco dance and even brings in her dad, Leslie Nielsen, to do a little disco dancing in here at some point too.
and some of the earlier like the way they set up kind of like the killer like in the original is probably some of my favorite things, because it brings back, it's kind of like a reference to the original Scream, how they get like the call. And you see, like, it's some really clever shots too. Of like, they pick up like the phone, and you can kind of see like the hand of like the serial killer. Like, I know what you did. Do you like playing games? It kind of reminded me a little bit of like Jigsaw, a little bit.
Yep. Yeah.
Like that, or even like Ghostface, even because.
Got that, or the I Know What You Did Last Summer. You could totally tell that like a lot of those '90s movies were like kind of aping Prom Night, because that's the thing is this is one of those. It's like it reminds me a lot like Death Wish, where Death Wish is one of those movies. If you watch it kind of now and after you've seen like 10,000 like revenge type flicks, it doesn't seem out of context. It doesn't seem like it's anything like original. But you're like, no, that's pretty much what started so much of that kind of stuff. Is that's like that first one, and that's exactly how I feel Prom Night sort of is too. Is it's like it really starts a lot of these kind of themes, because even like it's got a twist in the movie and so on that it's easy to kind of tell like nowadays probably what's going on. But I could see probably if you would have watched this in cinemas back in the '80s, that might have been a little bit like, oh, I didn't expect that maybe like as easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would have loved to watch like this movie with the crowd. Like I think even now like they probably would have like private screenings or just screenings at like a local independent like movie theater and just watch like a bunch of like horror fans, because I could see like people like dancing with Jamie Lee Curtis up on stage, kind of like how people were doing that with Megalopolis with Adam Driver's speech or whatever. So,
yeah,
did you hear stuff about that, or have you seen Megalopolis? Or
no, I never. Is that new Francis Ford Coppola movie?
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Well, I don't know. It's like one of those ones. Like I saw the trailer and it was like one of those things where it's like I was excited because it was Francis Ford Coppola. And then I watched that trailer and I don't know what to think anymore. I was like, what is going on here? Like,
I think my feelings after sitting through Megalopolis is just telling Francis Ford Coppola, just go to bed, Grandpa. Go to bed. Like, like it's time to hang it up. Not saying that you're a bad filmmaker or anything, because he's made some of the greatest films ever made, but I'm just like, really, a movie about utopian society and how how we need to like throw everything out and start over again. I'm like, no, I'm done. I'm done with these type of people.
Yeah, so, it's like I hate to sort of say it, Martin Scorsese is like the one who can get away being the old man director and still turn out like banger movies, but I'm not too sure if Francis Ford Coppola hasn't done one in a while too, so I don't know.
I would throw George Miller in there as well.
Oh yeah, George Miller actually too.
Yeah,
it's probably because he doesn't do that many movies, and that's why those like when he does a movie, he comes out and does it hardcore.
Yeah, and I don't know how you feel about James Cameron, but and with the recent Avatar movies, like not saying that they're bad, but I think he's kind of like approaching the Francis Ford Coppola like hang up the clothes. Hang up the clothes.
Yeah, is he getting there? Well, Avatar is one of those ones, like, I look, if you would have asked me when I was a kid, I would have watched everything James Cameron, because I was so obsessed with Aliens and, Terminator 1, 2, True Lies. Those are all some of my favorite movies, but, like, remember the Avatar one, I just always had a hard time kind of getting around. I was like, it's okay. It's not bad, but it's not great. It's just like one of those ones. And I didn't even see the second one. I was just like, I don't know. So I'm almost at that point now in life too, where like there used to be a period where like I felt like I had to see everything, or I had to read everything. If like one of those ones, if Batman was in it, like I had to be there. Now I'm at this point where I'm like, you don't. There's not enough time in life to have to go to everything. You can start being a little bit picky and choosy, and I feel like we're at that point now where we're now like middle aged, halfway through life. You know what I mean? There's not as much of this free time where you can just randomly watch stuff that you probably don't need to. That's just going to suck your time anyway. So now I've gotten a little bit more like I'm not saying I'll watch just about anything, but like I kind of at the same time go like I don't have to. Like I don't have that like feeling like I'm going to be missing out if I don't do it. Like if I don't complete my collection type thing, like I'm like no, don't worry.
I think part of the reason why we feel that way though is because like streaming has really just kind of added to this problem, just because like you can go on streaming and just see literally everything, and then like I know I forget if you like subscribe to like a bunch of streaming services because you don't necessarily like you're more like physical media
I kind of have both. I'm like that thing, like I still buy a handful of DVDs and Blu-rays and so on a month, and VHSs, and but I do still have like 5 different streaming things.
Yeah, but that's the problem. It's like these streaming services basically like all you can eat service, but I'm like, where do I even start at this point? Because you have like all the Netflix originals, which are garbage anyways, like half the garbage, and I'm just like, that's always like promoted to the front page, and something like Prom Night would probably be like I had to go digging on Prime Video to like find Prom Night. I had obviously I told you like before we started recording, I searched on Roku. And it popped up the 2008 version. I'm like, oh, what's that? And I'm like,
yeah. I should have. I got to come to a conclusion because, as I said, this is probably about the third or fourth time this has happened. At least the upside, as I said, you watch it because there was one time that me and Wes of Via VHS that I podcast with, I said, let's do Escape from L.A. Well, I think he heard, let's do Escape from New York, and so he watched New York and I watched L.A. and I said, let's still do the podcast anyways.
Still do the podcast and you start breaking it down like both films.
Yeah, so, I was just like, I'm like, I could talk New York as well because I've seen that one many a time. So I don't care. As I said, I wanted to do LA, and I know I choose because a lot of times I'll choose the random movie of them all. Like, you know, it's like, yeah, that's what I want to watch. Well, I want to do Escape from LA. But and then there was another time too. I think we were doing Street Fighter. I think it was me, Dunnigan, and we were gonna invite. I think it was my buddy Wes again on there and stuff. And he watched the Street Fighter live action one. I'm like, oh, I should have been more specific. That we're doing the Street Fighter 2, the animated movie.
But the thing about the whole Escape from LA and New York one, that you could actually double that as 2 Old Man Orange episodes. Or it's like 2 for the price of 1. See, we're covering both. So
yeah, exactly. Got me. Well, as I said, I was just saying, like me and Ryan used to do those ones where we did like a handful of movies at once, and I was like, oh, that was always like sometimes too much. I'm like, we just did that not that long ago with you, Spider-Man. I was like, Ryan's like, why don't we just do them all? I'm like, oh, sure, I guess 3 days to watch 10 hours worth of Spider-Man. Let's do it.
No, that's probably the best thing that I possibly could have done. Like just watching those old Spider-Man movies.
No, I was so happy afterwards because it had been so long. So I was like, I'm glad we did that. You know, because a lot of times that is kind of it sounds easy on paper. Sometimes just be like, yeah, just watch them all, and then you start going, oh god, I gotta get this. How many movies done in the week? It's not like any of the Spider-Man ones are short, but I was like, oh yeah, you the second you just start the first one up, you're like, oh, I'm in. You know what I mean? Because
the only franchise that I could probably do that for, other than Spider-Man, is probably Scream. Like
Scream?
Yeah, even though there's like 6 movies of that, and
yeah,
probably about 2 hours, two hours a piece. But like I could do a whole podcast of the Scream movies, even though I just watched them for the first time like a couple of years ago. But yeah, I love Scream so much. So
no, they are fun. That's definitely true, and I've generally always seen any of them because even like some of the later days ones like they're still fun, even if they get kind of goofy and like kind of like out there. It's like that almost sometimes makes the experience even better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like did you see Scream 6 at all, or?
You know, I don't know if I saw Scream 6 to tell you the truth. That was the one that came out like a year ago.
Yeah, I think it was 2 years ago.
You know, I might not have seen that one. I know I saw Scream 4 and 5 in cinemas. Yeah. I must have. No, I think I did. I think I did see Scream. I can't imagine missing it, but God, I can't tell you what the heck it was.
Because those are the Radio Silence guys, right? That did Ready or Not.
Oh, maybe.
Which there's a sequel coming out for that, Radio or Not 2.
No, really.
Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't. But somebody told me about it, so I kind of have an idea what it's all about. But
you no spoilers, but you just check it out. Check it out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I heard. I heard it was one of those ones like, oh, you gotta check that one out. And I was like, cool, I'll put that on the stack with the 10,000 other things I need to get to. But that's always kind of how it is. It's like, don't get me wrong, like I'm thinking about it.
Add it to my never-ending watch list of movies or Halloween movies that I need to watch during.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Well, speaking of Scream, though, may go and see this next week going down the East LA area, but they're going to do in Hollywood, they're doing Scream on top of, I think they're showing it like, it sounds weird, but almost like on a rooftop area, and then they're doing it with the headphone thing and whatnot, some kind of different, I'm like, I would be down for that. Whatever this... Yeah, silent disco of movies. That actually sounds like I kind of think about it, I'm like, that's actually kind of good because my biggest complaint to sometimes seeing old movies in cinemas is that you get old, I hate to sort of say it, it's mostly always old people, it's never young people, that want to talk during the movie, and I always refer to it like they think that it's on the background during Thanksgiving on TBS, and they can just, talk like everyone's seen it, and that's always my biggest complaint to like sometimes some old movies is that some people, and they don't keep their voices down or anything like that. It's like, dude, we aren't watching it at your house. You know what I mean? Like let's just enjoy the movie. You know, so like that silent disco idea, I think might be a great idea.
This like theater etiquette has been god awful recently. I totally agree with you, and I'm with your sentiment there, just because, like, especially with like the rise of TikTok and like social media, I like whenever I go to a movie, there's like kids like videoing the screen and like trying to go viral on TikTok, and I'm just like, it's not worth it. Just sit down and watch the movie.
Yeah.
Turn off your phone for 2 hours because you definitely need it, and just watch the damn movie. I hate to sound like a boomer.
Well, the worst part too is, I'll say this, is like, it's the weird one, is the boomers are also bad too, because they're the ones that talk loud during the movies, where you get the young ones, which I have seen that too, where people are videoing the movie. I'm like, back in the day, that used to be a criminal offense there, son. Yeah, it still is.
But no one cares.
Yeah, nobody cares anymore. Well, I'll say this, there's no money for that department to care. The FBI is like, we dropped that part. Like, the movies aren't worth they're not paying us anything to go out there after people anymore. But like, I remember like watching 2001: A Space Odyssey. I literally had to tell like an old couple, be like, hey, do you guys mind being quiet? We're trying to enjoy the movie here. Like, and they probably look at me like, what's this youngin' trying to tell me? Like, I was there in '69. Where were you? I'll be like, yeah, well, you know what? I want to watch this movie the way it's meant to be. I don't need you to comment during the whole way through on every little detail.
If I wanted commentary, I'll buy the Blu-ray and listen.
Yeah.
and listen to Stanley Kubrick.
Remember, I used that line like in like one of my Pizza Boys ones. There's a part where they're watching a movie, and I had one of the girls talking the whole time, and Audrey looks at it and goes, I thought I turned the audio commentary off.
Oh man.
So yeah, it's like that one that's like that movie etiquette. Like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm just gonna become like that person who's like, he locks himself away in his own home. You know what I mean? Like, I'm literally gonna turn myself into the old man horror movie character where kids come by on bikes and they'd be like, dude, what about old man Holmes' house? No, man, we don't go near there, man. Like, that guy hasn't left at all. Every once in a while, you might just see the flicker of his projector coming on.
Yeah, well, not trying to say that like COVID or 2020 was like the best of times, but the best thing about that came out of COVID were those private screenings, that like when movie theaters started opening up again, and you can rent like an entire movie theater for like
$100
for $100 or $50.
Yeah, even
what
better.
I would do is I was just like, I had like extra income at that point. I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna buy the entire movie theater.
Yes, hello, Sonny. I'm here to buy the movie, and I want my private screening. Yes, and popcorn every 20 minutes. No, make that snappy.
Make it snappy, son.
Well, it's like, I mean, like back in the day, that was like the thing, is if you went to one of those movie screenings and you were the only one there, it's like it literally gave you like, this is what it must be like to own your own movie theater and just like never have anybody else here. It's excellent.
So this is what Tarantino feels like every single day.
I know, exactly. It's like, and you know, that's where I feel like, you know, it's like I have a couple projectors that I have laying around here that do make for, the only downfall is like a lot of times I gotta like set it up outside. It's like the only place I have space, and this is like when you also get the old man thing. It's like, well, then you gotta wait until it's summertime, and then you gotta wait till it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock before it gets dark, and then by that point you're like, well, it's just time to lay down now. We've gone too far. Start a movie at this point. The movie should be wrapping up by this point.
See, that's how you know you're getting old. Like when it hits 9:30 and you're just like, I'm just gonna lay down here for a second.
Yeah.
Throw on Netflix and just start.
Yeah, that's it. You know, it's like the same thing. It's like, you know, I got like the Quest, and I'm like, one of the coolest things about that is like watching movies on there and so on like that, and the fact that you could also lay down and watch movies, like, you know, like that thing that you've always dreamed about. Like, imagine laying down flat but still being able to watch a movie. And it's like, oh, we've presented this for you here. And then I always kind of feel bad because it's like, I really felt like I haven't got enough movie watching out of that. Like, it's like there's this thing that gives you a full-on cinema experience on your face, you know, and yeah, we'll watch a couple movies on it.
It's interesting you brought that up, just because, like, I had a Quest like back in the day, but I got rid of it just because I tried watching a full movie on that thing through that big screen app that you're talking about, And I think I got 20 minutes in, and I was just like, my eyes are starting to hurt. I can't do this for a full movie experience.
I will say, even because this is like the Quest 3, and even still, yeah, I feel like you got about a maximum of 2 hours is about all you can really wear that thing for. You know, it's like one of those ones. It's cool for like, you know, like the half an hour. It's great. By about the hour mark, that's like, yeah, it's like, okay, I could maybe push through a little bit. And then, yeah, there comes a point where you're like, okay, I guess that's about it, you know. Or it's like, I even have like these like TV glasses that I use, like, and I actually use it to finish Prom Night just to tie it back in there. But they literally like, it's like when I have to kill time, I'm just like, okay, I'm sitting in the car waiting and whatnot. You just plug it into your phone, and then you put the glasses over. I have to put them over my glasses because I'm blind, but beyond that, so it has got the goofy look. It literally is just like, boop, there's a little screen right there, and it just plugs in my phone, so I just go to like whatever movies I want to watch. It's like, yep, I kind of have a big screen in my car, and I probably look like a crazy person sitting in there from a distance.
Or just a blind person. You're just
yeah, like should that blind person be driving?
yeah, right.
Isn't he in the wrong seat? Did he get confused? Yeah.
You're just driving like this, just like yeah.
Well, because you literally
full on like old man, like sunglasses. And you're just...
Well, because you can see out the bottom of them, so you almost could be like doing that thing driving, watching the movie. Sorry.
You're like, oh, go Jamie Lee Curtis, get those disco moves.
The only downfall of these glasses, though, unlike the Quest, where like you can twist your head around like you're inside the movie theater, this one you have to literally like lean back against like a seat or something because the screen moves with your glasses. So if you were driving, it would be like very nauseating. Yeah. You want to make sure you're still as can be. But
now I just see you like driving your car, like watching a movie, and you're just like lean your seat all the way back. And you're just like, it's okay, I'll make it home. You'll be like, those glasses actually sound perfect for like the Tesla cab. Did you see stuff about that? Like the
I did see it. I did, because I'm all for that kind of stuff. I'm like, I want my Johnny Cab from like Total Recall.
Yeah,
it's a Johnny Cab.
See, but the thing about Johnny, how did we get that? How did we get that in? But we did.
Oh, I'm gonna get the Johnny Cab. I've been waiting for my Johnny Cab lifestyle.
See, the Johnny Cab seated more than two, right?
Yeah, like it had like a back seat, and then of course Arnold just rips out the Johnny Cab robot and starts driving it himself. I'm like, why is there that like extra joystick in there? And they're like, oh, Arnold's just gonna rip this. It's probably that guy's like guts,
right? Well, if it's a joystick, I think we already know what it is.
Yeah, we know what that is. That's what you know what I mean.
But the thing that doesn't make sense about the Tesla like cab or whatever, the self-driving car, like it seats two, like that kind of defeats the perfect purpose of moving people around if it only seats two. Like it's really just like someone like some rich person just like, oh, I don't feel like driving today. Let me get my robot chauffeur.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure that's probably what it is to start. Then they'll have like the 8-seater, like for everybody who's going to like the sports games and so on.
Yeah, well, the Robovan, or as Elon called it, the Robovan, which Elon is just trying to make Metropolis at this point. He's just trying to.
As I said, because a lot of times people come and be like, "Man, that's such a goofy looking thing." I'm like, "Well, you probably didn't watch RoboCop
or iRobot, or
yeah, because any of those ones from there and whatnot, or you probably didn't watch Prom Night and you didn't have the disco infused tunes.
Robovan.
Speaking of vans, going back to Prom Night, this is the one part that maybe was like I'm like, maybe this is like, I was starting to think of like this, like maybe this is kind of pre-van stigma era, but there's a part where like one of the girls is walking to school and whatnot like this, and this guy pulls up in one of those like actually kind of hip 70s vans, those ones that almost looks like the Shaggin' Wagon type thing, and this dude who literally pulls up there, he looks like straight up like Nedry from Jurassic Park, but if he was in high school, so it's like old school like Wayne Knight. It's not Wayne Knight, but I mean this guy just looks all nerdy as can be, and he's like literally like, hey babe, what's going on? What's his name, Slick? Or
yeah, it's Slick.
Yeah, like he's like, hey, my name's Slick. You want to jump on in the van? You know, and she just goes along with it. She's like, sure, whatever. You know, he doesn't seem creepy at all. But as I said, maybe this is before the van had the stigma of being like, you never get in a van.
Is it Drew? Was that Drew?
No, he. Maybe that's what it was. I was gonna say he definitely had a name like something like Slick or. Well, why can't I find that?
Shidnick. I'm going with that, to be honest, because that actually seems like it tracks, to be honest.
Drew Shidnick. God, it feels like his dude's name was like literally like. Well, whatever. So she gets in that van, which can't be safe or anything like that, and just you know what? Yeah, you know what it says here? Here he is, Goofy Jokester Seymour Slick Crane. So it's Seymour.
Slick Crane.
You know, and
yeah, I see it. Sheldon Rabowski. Sheldon Rabowski. Yeah.
I mean, I do give this movie credit because it really does just give this really nerdy guy, and he just gets the girl. Nobody seems to like complain. Like I'm like for an older movie, like well, that's kind of ballsy there. You know what I mean? It's not like '80s movies where it's like, no, that nerd ain't getting anybody. don't make me laugh.
See, this is probably the most positive.
Ducky ain't going to the prom.
This is the most positive thing about Prom Night because like part of the joke about nerds is like, oh, you're not gonna go to prom. You're just gonna go play Zelda with your buddies, or like even if you're a loner like me, you're just gonna play Zelda alone. But it's like, no, you can get the girl too. Just ask.
Hey, just ask. Just drive a van. Call yourself Slick.
Yeah. Call yourself Slick. Drive a van and just be like, hey, I want to come party in my van tonight.
Yeah, I got the history.
It's not creepy. I swear it's not creepy.
That's okay. We get in my van and we're gonna read history. And then he opens up that history book. He's like, of doobs.
Oh man. That's the most late 70s thing to like even do, where it's just like, yeah.
Yeah, he's in his shaggin' wagon van. He's got a bunch of marijuana. You know, he's cut open it like a literally the history of the United States book to hide it in.
Yeah, and just like what a way to go out for like that character. He's just like he finally got it. He finally got some. It was just like, you know what? No, I everything that I've wanted in the world. I got the lady. I got the girl of my dreams. I'm just gonna go out like this. So I'm like, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. No, he actually goes out and he's got a fighting chance there and so on like that. He even loses his glasses, or he sits on his glasses or something like that. So he's going blind, but he's still trying to fight his way out. You know, that dude's jumping in the van, tacking him down and whatnot. So it gets intense there. You know, they're doing like donuts out in the grass. I just always think about that. I'm like, man, how many takes do they have to do on that grass there? Just getting probably torn up.
Yeah. This guy freaking grass burn, just like
somebody's real pissed about their lawn.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, no, they got some interesting characters out here. You know, some of the girls are kind of like, well, they have that one girl that's like, there's kind of like the bitch girl that like drives that Corvette or whatever. That for some reason she's really got it out for Jamie Lee Curtis. I don't remember there being a scene of like why she just is.
That maybe it's just because she knows that Jamie Lee Curtis is going to make it to the end. I'm just like, no, I want to make it to the end. She's just
I'm driving the Corvette. Yeah.
Right? What do you got, Jamie Lee? Dance moves?
Leslie Nielsen is a father.
Yeah. Well, at least you have a father. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's just got like, her mom is like real, like, if that is her mom. I don't know if that's the mom or if that's her like maid. I was really kind of wondering because she literally is just sitting there like smoking a cigarette, and the lady's like, will you be home for dinner later tonight? I don't know. Will I? So puts the cigarette down, just walks out, jumps in the Corvette. Like, jeez.
Like, I understand this is late 70s and like a part of like teenagers were rebellious at this point, but
yeah, well, teenagers are always rebellious.
It seems a little over the top at this point. Like,
they're always rebellious unless it's that Prom Night 2008 where it looks like it's the richest kids like prom. I don't know what they got to rebel against. There was so much money flowing there that I was kind of
Well, it's also 2008, so you had the financial crisis. So maybe they were
That's well, or the movie's probably made right before that financial crisis. Those kids don't know what's coming to them next. they're probably better off being killed right there. You know what I'm just saying?
Or maybe the movie's just predicting like the financial crisis, where it's just like what else do I got to live for? I'm gonna go to prom instead. Go to prom and get killed in this in this hotel room. See, that's the thing I don't like about the 2008 version too, where it's like what I liked about the original one, it's like this prom actually seemed legit for like an actual high school to put on. The 2008 version, like you said, it's like a bunch of rich kids like go into like this upscale like prom, and like my high school wouldn't put anything on like that, so it's like it seemed very unrealistic. So
yeah, that's what I feel like is like that's something that always kind of bothers me when they kind of do that thing where like they almost like Hollywood it up so much that now it almost doesn't even seem like realistic. And I think there's some people that like they get that thing where they're like, you know what, we want the movie to feel like this is what kids wish they had, you know. And it's like to me, I always feel like that always kind of takes me out. And I mean, there's good movies that do stuff like that. It's like Clueless. I like that movie a lot. Don't get me wrong, I like Clueless. But that like I always say, man, like that girl is so rich, she's like almost unrelatable to anybody.
Yeah. Exactly.
When you really think about it, like she's like so ridiculously rich that it's like how can she literally relate to anybody?
Yeah, it's almost like movies like back in the day where were just designed by like studio executives at that point, and they didn't get any input from like literally anyone. So I'm like, that's why executives shouldn't be making anything creative at this point. They should just be greenlighting stuff.
Just you know, do that thing that Japan does, where like once you've chosen like your creative people, you go let them do what they do. That's why we picked them. you know, we're not gonna question it from this point on. You know, we picked them. Well, it's kind of like
paychecks.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like I remember like that was like in like even Office Space. That was like the thing that pretty much the producers wanted to do. They're like, well, how about we take this Office Space like idea, but we'll put it in Wall Street and have it be hustle and bustle New York. It's like whoa, that's not it. It's supposed to be like it's Texas Tech. It's not that. It's literally strip mall kind of areas and so on. Like you're not getting it if you switch it to there. That's not the point.
Martin Scorsese basically just says like, hey, wait like 10 years and I'll give you that movie, but let Office Space cook. So I'm like,
yeah, exactly, yeah. We'll get back to the Wall Street stuff. Yeah, you know, we'll get Wall Street too.
Yeah, money never sleeps. So
yeah, money never does sleep, you know. But yeah, it's like that one. I think that's really what makes like the original Prom Nights like. No, it feels realistic. It feels like a regular high school, even like for 70s. You know, I mean, it's just like it's like there you go. It's believable. You know, even though the characters might look a little bit old, they're still, you know, generally, you know, you get the archetypes. You know, like I'll take that. You know, maybe they are only like all in their early 20s, or maybe they aren't even that like. Some of those guys look old, but you know. You'd probably be surprised if you looked it up, because as I say, once I looked up Jamie Lee Curtis, I'm like, God, she's only 21. You know, some of these other people are probably. I think her brother was the brother character who is spoilers. He's only 17. Actually, I saw that on like when I was reading up on it. So he actually is like the actual age, pretty much. I believe that he is probably 17 at that point, but everyone else I thought was at least 40 in this, which. For like a slasher movie that's rated R, like is there kind of like some legality too, where they have to be like over 18 or something like that if they're going to be in a movie like this or something? Yeah, yeah. Generally, they kind of have to be 18. You know, I think even back in the day, that's kind of true. I'm not saying that there's not loopholes and you know people haven't done stuff like people haven't put like even like Jodie Foster at 13 as a hooker and taxi driver. It's like so all things are possible, but it's or even like what's her name as Reagan in The Exorcist, but yeah, it's like one of those ones where it's weird. I think it's just that mixed match of it. Like, people just kind of aged older. Like, you know, it's a perfect example. I'll take another 70s movie. Now, this is actually an older person, but like Walter Matthau in The Bad News Bears. Like, you look at him in that movie and you're like, dude, that guy looks like you're like grandpa almost, something like that. He looks like really old. And it's like, I think he's like 47 or something like in that movie. It's like mind blowing. You're like, what?
Some people just age rapidly at this point.
Yeah, I think.
Or Benjamin Button, where it's just like they're just age in reverse. Somewhat.
Yeah, just go and do, you know, the other way around. But so I think there's just a bit of that there. But
which is it's funny, like how you mentioned like Jamie Lee Curtis, like always had like that kind of like mom vibe to her. But if you look at her now, like she honestly seems like she's younger than she was than she was in this movie, or like it's like she's aged kind of gracefully in my opinion. Yeah.
Most definitely. And the fact that she still goes out and does horror movies, I think that's one of the coolest things. She just did a Halloween trilogy. It's like, you know, I mean, in a sense, didn't really need to, but it's like, I like how she just kind of owns up on that. Like, you know, where there's some actors be like, I'm beyond that now. I don't do horror movies. I do, you know, it's like, no, I'll go back. I'll fight Mike Myers three more movies. Why not? I've only, you know, and I kind of thought, I'm like, I think she's in like 7 or 8 Halloween movies. It's actually kind of mind blowing how many she's actually in.
Yeah. And I think she's filming Freaky Friday 2.
Oh, really? That's kind of cool.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. And I know a lot of people like give her a lot of hate too, especially with her winning like Best Supporting like actress for Everything Everywhere All at Once. But I just think it's great for her to get that win, just because she's been doing genre like films pretty much her entire career, with like Prom Night being kind of the breakout like performance for her, and to have like her get like an Oscar like at the end of her career for like all her work in like genre like film like Prom Night and Halloween, I think that's really great. So
yeah, because you hate to sort of say it, but think of how many other like leading ladies in horror movies go on to have like a wide range, you know, career. I mean, there's some of them. You know, you got Jennifer Aniston out of Leprechaun.
Yes. Well, I immediately I thought of like Sigourney Weaver from Aliens.
Yeah. Well, Aliens, I mean, even though I know that is a horror movie, but like I feel like that one's like a classy like sci-fi horror movie in a weird way. It doesn't feel like you're, and I'm not saying anything against, because I love, you know, Halloween and I enjoyed, you know, Prom Night and all that stuff, but like, you know, Aliens I think always is a little, but you know, I mean, I can see that though too, but it definitely is, I feel like you're getting a little bit more in that one, a little bit more, I guess you would say, depth than your standard kind of slasher or something.
People always argued with me about Aliens being just like a straight action movie, even though there's scary moments in Aliens anyway. Like, it's just like an alien movie. All alien movies have like horror elements to it, and I feel like I would go on the record and say like Aliens is probably scarier than the first Alien. Just because,
because I think there's more stuff going on in there. Where there's definitely more, like, you know, in Alien you get more. You get the 70s build up, just no different than Prom Night, where, you know, you get kind of your movie rolling, and then there's about an hour where realistically no action happens. You're just doing character building, set, you know, kind of like viewing and whatnot, and seeing where you're going to progress in your story. But yeah, it definitely has that kind of thing. Where Aliens does take a moment to start too, I guess. I mean, that one does kind of have like, because that movie's like so long too, that's like, you know, it's like almost 3 hours. So it's like, yeah, that first hour, it's just like, we're getting ready, we're getting, you know, getting our Marines set up and everything like that, you know, and then once you finally get there, that's when you start to get the action. But I love it. You know, I think Aliens, I mean, I like both of them, but Aliens is so good.
Yeah, Aliens is so good, and that's something that's kind of like similar to Prom Night, like the 1980 version, is that like, the reason why like scary movies like should work is that you have characters that have made mistakes like in the past, and you actually care about them and kind of want them to like work through it. And Prom Night, the 1980 version, has that, and Aliens has really great characters that are working through stuff, and you want them to kind of like prevail and like succeed based on like their past kind of like actions. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think the kind of cool thing in Prom Night too is you do have something where the main like villain, I guess it's not necessarily, you know, like a monster like or anything like that. It's a real guy, and it's just somebody who literally has been scarred and in a sense, like he saw what happened to his sister, and now he's going to go out and, you know, do what, you know, right the wrongs, even if it's going to, you know, take his own life, and even if he's going to become pretty much mental in the process, you know. So it does kind of have an interesting thing, because the guy, if you see him in, like, you know, the regular scenes with it, it's like, oh, he's a, you know, normal, happy kid, you know, yeah, lost his sister, well, you know, that's okay, he's coping well with it, you know. But then it's like, oh, no. It took a turn on him. You know, he never forgot.
Yeah, and you really don't forget, like, when something that traumatic, like, happens. Like,
yeah,
when you see, like, your sister, like, playing with, like, I don't know why he didn't necessarily step in and be like, mate, this is not necessarily, like, the best scenario for, like, these kids to be playing in. Like, be a good older brother and be like, hey, I'm not going to let you play with these girls. And
well, I think they're twins. I think those two were supposed to be twins, and then Jamie Lee Curtis was the older sister.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. I think, yeah, they are.
So I think, in a sense, I almost want to say those two, the girl that dies in the beginning and the brother, are probably like a year younger than all the other people, and everybody else is pretty much like a senior, while he would be like a junior, give or take, you know. So I feel like that's always kind of was. So they were a little bit more like peer pressured into, you know, going up there to play murder hide and seek.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know how you were, but just peer pressure never really affected me. So like when stuff like happens, like in movies where people are peer pressured to do things, it's always kind of unrealistic for me, because it's like, I'm gonna do what's best for me in that situation. I'm like, this does not seem like it's going to end well. So you guys can have fun with that. I'm going to jet out and just and go back and play my Zelda. So
yeah,
I know Zelda hasn't come out yet, but just
I think definitely with a little bit of 90s attitude and so on like that kind of changed that, where it's just like, oh, well, you guys are doing this, see ya. You just would just leave, you know, be like, yeah, you do you. You know,
it's
so
like the guy with the camera guy in the first Scream, or is it Scream 2 or I think the first Scream.
Scream 1 has a camera guy, yeah.
Yeah, the black dude that basically just gets in the TV van and just like, I'm getting out of here. See ya. So, like, the most in character moment to ever like happen to like any horror character. We're just like, I'm getting out of here. This Ghostface guy, that, like, yeah, you guys deal with it. I'm jetting out. So I'm like,
yeah, exactly. It's just like, that's it. Well, the nice thing I will say in Prom Night is that they actually do it pretty well, where like all the killings, like nobody has any idea. There's only one person that finds out. Is there's like, in a sense, the creepy janitor guy that everybody thinks is just like an old pervert guy, that, you know, he just gets blamed for everything just because he's, you know, pretty much just an old nerdy guy that just, this is the only job he can get by this point. and he's kind of off. Like, you tell he's kind of special ed, you know. And so of course you see this guy's being set up as the red herring. I was waiting for something bad to happen to this guy, and really it's just all it is. He comes, he's like, they're killing people out there and so on, and the principal's just like, oh, come on, Bob, you just had a little too much to drink, let's get you on home. Just
I like that shot, like at the beginning of the school where he's like trimming the hedges, and they're like, it's a shot, he's just holding like the hedge trimmer, and it totally paints him as like the red herring, where it's just like, oh, is this guy like a killer? And I'm just like, no, he's just trimming the hedges.
Yeah.
Don't mind him. In the most like auspicious ways.
Yeah, he's just got his glasses. They're all like taped, and he's leaning over like, hey, what are you girls doing? Yeah.
What are you girls doing? I'm just trimming these hedges. So, I don't know why I went Sling Blade there, but
I love them French fried potatoes. Well, then those girls aren't helpful, because then there's that one girl who just like shows him his ass, be like, this is what you'll never get. No, 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 no. Like one of those things. It's like, and the teacher's like, what the fuck are you doing to that guy?
He's already suffered enough. He's already had enough trauma. He's a janitor at a school trimming the hedges. Just let him live in peace. So like,
yeah, and then you also have, there's that other red herring dude who like we actually never see in the movie, but there's this guy who just gets a lot of blame placed on him. he may have done no crimes whatsoever, but this town just blames him for everything, and they blamed him on like the little girl being killed just because he happened to like be there at that time, like walking next to the house or whatever, something like that, and stuff. And then they made it also weird because it's always like, like maybe it was a sexual assault to like this 10-year-old girl out here, and then they pushed her out a window or something like that. It's like, well, this guy's really coming to like some conclusions here.
Yeah. See, that's something that the remake and the original actually has in common, is that the detectives or the cops like trying to like find like this serial killer, like in both movies, they're all real bad like detectives, like and like not to throw shade on Idris Elba, but it's just like he's always like one step behind, like the killer, like the Prom Night killer, like in the remake. And I wouldn't say that they're one step behind in the original, but they're still not very good, just because they're like, it's kind of like very, they're stretching it very thin on their theories of like how this girl possibly died. So I'm like, it's yeah. For sure. Yeah, I know. Yeah, as I said, he's kind of getting there. And we never see this guy. And then at some point, this guy's like, yeah, we found him. He was out there like, well, good. We can sleep well tonight. I'm out of here. Let's enjoy the prom. let's have a dance party, everyone. So. Yeah, well, bring out the king and queen. And then like the Tom Cruise guy gets his head sliced off, which was like kind of the coolest like gore part of the movie. And it goes rolling out. And I like how it takes a moment before anybody knows what is going on. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's our stand-in Tom Cruise guy that we just like, you know, expelled from school early today. What's he doing at the prom? That son of a bitch. He's losing his head. So yeah, because that was definitely the goriest part. You know, this sounds weird. I was trying to look it up. I didn't see it in like the information I was, but I could have swore back in the day on Eli Roth's podcast, he mentioned Prom Night was one of those movies that like, I think it was Prom Night. I'm pretty darn sure that right about this time period, like they were starting to get kind of a little bit of a crackdown on violence, and movies are like, whoa, you guys got to pump the brakes here on these. These movies are getting too violent all of a sudden. And Prom Night, I thought he said this was the one that got kind of thrown under there, where they're like, it actually was more violent. And then they had to kind of cut things back, be like, well, you got to pull it back into like a standard R, none of this crazy NC-17 R stuff. You know, we let some movies slide, no more. You know, we're calling it a day here. And I did not see any of that when I was looking it up, so I'm not too sure. But whenever I hear that kind of thing, because that happens to a lot of movies, both action and horror movies, especially back in the day, and you hear about that there's a lot of these extra violent scenes that are out there, and it's such a bummer that like they haven't taken really advantage of like the fact that, you know, especially when DVDs were really popular, it was like you extended cuts, director's cuts, you know, alternative cuts, like, you know, just slap those extra scenes in there, and just it doesn't have to be like the definitive #1 version of the movie, but just make it be the alternative kind of version. It's like I would love to see those scenes, and deleted scenes are cool, but like I like the idea when they put them back in the movie, even if it makes the movie kind of like the pacing kind of gets thrown off. That's okay. Like it's just fun to have that. Like here's all the extra stuff that you were supposed to get initially, and we couldn't do it back in the day, but now we're gonna do it now. You know, and it's like another one I was thinking about. This is about 10 years later, but there's that Night of the Living Dead, the remake one that Tom Savini does. And that movie's really good as is, but like you watch the special features, it's like there's so much more violence that they had to tone down in it. And it's like, well, gosh, you have the footage. Can't we just put this back in now? Like, you know what I mean? And resell the DVD and, you know, Blu-ray and all that stuff nowadays. But, you know, so many of these movies, it's like, it's kind of a bummer that this footage just gets landlocked. Yeah, it definitely is a bummer, and it's actually kind of surprising because it seems like I know like the common conversation online is always like movies back in like the late 70s and early 80s were they kind of had more free reign, like to kind of like do whatever they want, and you would think that today it would be more constricted just because of how sensitive people are. Not trying to be like one of those podcasts now, but yeah, everything has to be like everything has to be locked down now, and everyone's kind of like careful about who to offend and stuff like that. So it's actually interesting that you brought that up. But I would kind of like to see like more like unrated or uncut like versions of like Prom Night or even something like Halloween or anything like that. Almost kind of like Zack Snyder, Ridley Scott need to like talk to like Paul Lynch or John Carpenter at this point to be like, release the Carpenter cut, release the Lynch cut. So I'm like,
yeah, just to have those one, because that's the thing is like if there's a movie I like and I hear that there's an extended cut of some kind, even if it's like 1 minute more added to it, like I feel like I literally will go out my way and buy it. Be like, sure. You know, I want to see this version. I feel like it's necessary. So, like, you know, that's something that always excites me. And it is always kind of a bummer, too, you know. And even, like, you know, how you're speaking of just, like, there was that time period. Well, you know what time period I think was actually one of the most, like, violent, where, like, it just felt like violence was guaranteed, was that late 2000s era. And I always felt like it sort of started with Rambo 4. Because I remember after Rambo 4... I used to always say, it's like, by this point, like, any action movie and horror movie, you were unless Prom Night being PG-13, any other, like, rated R movie, you were, like, guaranteed to always have good violence. Like, that was, like, one of those ones, like, you know, like, they just delivered. Punisher Warzone, super violent. Tropic Thunder, it's a comedy. The movie's super violent, too, at the same time. Like, it was one of those, like,
too. So.
Yeah, like where they just like it was just one of those ones like that's kind of the night like nobody ever gives credit to like the 2000s, but I always felt like that Attitude Era of the 90s kind of kept rolling into the 2000s, and that's where like that, especially that late 2000s, you do get a lot of great violence in movies at that time period that I feel like you don't see nearly as much now. At least you haven't for a while. Not saying that you can't find movies. There's always movies that sort of fly under the radar and foreign movies and so on like that. But I mean, just straight like in cinema movies, you know, like a normal action movie. Like as I said, like Rambo 4 is a perfect example. You're going just to see a Rambo, and that movie's extremely violent.
Well, not trying to derail like this conversation even more, but have you seen Terrifier 3 yet? Because I feel like Terrifier.
I've never seen any of those that actually appeared in cinemas, and I was like, well, maybe I haven't seen a movie in a month because there hasn't been anything else out. Maybe I'll go see Terrifier. And I actually almost thought about doing that.
Yeah, because I hear that that's kind of like coming back to like the early 2000s and kind of like late
like
70s,
Hostel and things like that kind of.
Yeah,
you know.
So I'm not sure if I'm ready to like tackle any stuff like that because I hear that the violence in that, like, people are like throwing up in it, but
yeah,
it's because it's like these kids haven't seen the stuff like we've seen like recently, but it's I don't know, it's I'm definitely gonna have to wait for Terrifier 3 for sure. So yeah,
well, I've heard a couple people talk about it, buddies and so on, that have seen it, and it does sound like, just from even other people that watch horror movies, it definitely I think is on the intense thing. Sometimes the movie to me, like when people describe it, I'm like, is it just violence and gore for violence and gore's sake, or is there kind of like a reason behind it? Like sometimes I always kind of wonder that. Like I got no problem with violence and gore. I like all that kind of stuff in movies, but sometimes there's some movies where it's like that's like the selling point. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's not like it's like the story is driving that to why we have that violence. But I would be down for checking them out. I'm not like opposed to it or anything like that. I'm down for Scary Clown. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people who never found clowns necessarily scary in regular life. So it's like I remember like even with like It and everything like that, I'm like, it's clown. You know what I mean? What you guys don't like going to the carnival?
He's just a sewer dweller.
Yeah, one of those sewer dwellers. I just like that's what he's referred to as. Is that a clown? No, that's a sewer dweller.
Yeah, he's just a homeless clown. He's just living in the sewer.
Yeah,
he just wants some kids to play with. It's like. That actually sounds kind of bad, actually. So
yeah, exactly. Like he's gonna be driving a '70s shag and wagon van.
Yeah, I never necessarily found clowns like all that scary. I just found them a little just bizarre and maybe a little bit on the maybe a little on the spectrum a little bit too. So it's just I don't know. Yeah.
It's an alternative actor.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. I'll definitely check out Terrifier 3 like eventually. But speaking of like we were talking about like before we started realizing we should talk about Prom Night. Another movie that I saw recently. I saw The Substance, and I know we're kind of like thinking about talking about that one, but that's a like a body horror like movie that actually uses violence to its like benefit to help like the story. No no spoilers for that, but it like the body horror in that is actually pretty graphic, and I feel like the horror there is there for a reason. But yeah, that the substance is really great. Everyone should go check it out. That's just me promoting that. So
yeah, it sounds cool to me. I feel like I need to go check that one out. I've never seen that one, so. As I say, it's always amazing. It's like I've watched so many horror movies in my life, but then I still feel like there's so many more that I need to watch. Like it's even without like you can just minus from like 2000s on up and just go backwards, and it'd be like I felt like it might take me the rest of my life to see all these.
Yeah, it's just I think for me, the fact that I have so many blind spots for horror movies and so many blind spots, and those blind spots are like considered classics, like Prom Night. And even Halloween, that I watched for the first time last year, I think that's what makes it disappointing. Every single time October rolls around, like I can never like make a dent in my like horror movie watch list. But I'm trying. So.
Well, and I will say the one thing about horror movies, this is like what I kind of miss from back in the day, is that horror movies were always some of the most fun films to watch when you got a group of people over and you're going to do a big old movie night. Like, horror movies were so perfect for that. And it's that thing that, like, I don't really watch horror movies as often, you know, and it's never like, I don't know, but maybe it's just because there isn't that experience of the group activity and so on. I mean, whenever I throw on a horror movie, I enjoy it. Like, it's like, oh man, why don't I do this more often kind of feel, you know. Even just watching Prom Night, I was engaged the whole way through and whatnot. I was like, it just sucked me in. I was like, okay, cool. I just love the aesthetic, especially of stuff. I get nostalgic no matter what, and when you just see just the cool old settings and whatnot, and I think just from being a kid watching so much old TV as is, like I feel just like as like I was there in the 70s as anything else, just because of how much of that TV era I watched and movies and whatnot. But yeah, it's one of those ones, like I'll watch a movie like this and be like, man, I should go back and watch. I have so many other ones I could, you know, throw on, or, you know, and I'm also at that point too where, you know, just like how we're talking about the Spider-Man ones early on, it's like, once it's been over like 10 years since you last saw a movie, well, hell, you throw it back on and it's practically brand new again. I mean, like, yeah, you know the main beats and everything like that, but you really are getting just that nice, refreshing experience once more. And there's a lot of horror movies I could go out and pretty much do that same thing. Like you were talking about Friday the 13th. I keep saying I'm going to sit down and like watch through all those ones over again too, because it's been a while there.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like horror movies really kind of like they lost like a lot of kind of like that fan experience too, ever since theaters kind of like went away with the midnight screening, because that's kind of like, I know we talked about how people don't know how to behave in theaters anymore, but horror movies is like that one like time where I want to be there like at midnight with a full packed crowd and just like watch people kind of like react to like all the scares and the jump scares and like the craziness that's going on. And Prom Night is probably one of those movies that I would like to have that midnight experience for, just because I can see just a bunch of people just having a great time, especially because Jamie Lee Curtis and then Leslie Nielsen, even though he's not in it all that much, but
yeah,
but it definitely seems like a midnight movie for sure. So.
Yeah, no, that would be a fun one, because I gotta see Halloween when they had, I don't know what it was, like the 40th anniversary or something like that a couple years ago back in cinemas and whatnot, and you know, that one kind of had a handful of people in there, and it sort of worked in its favor, you know. I think it's one of those ones that sometimes, like when you get a little bit more drama like movies and so on like that, it's like those are the ones you definitely cannot be talking during, like, what are you doing? Yep. You know. But yeah, I don't know how many times I've told somebody I have to be that guy that ends up saying something, you know, and it doesn't always work out in your favor, like, you know, but like, gosh, you know, it's like one of those ones, like, come on, people, you know, especially when it's like, yo, I paid $15. It's like, don't you dare come in here think you can just talk willy-nilly wherever. You know, do I go to your place? Do I go to your house and just start, you know, going through the refrigerator, talking, making a ruckus and all kinds of stuff?
It's drama movies where I get like offended with, and then also the one horror movie where it doesn't make sense to talk all the way through it is A Quiet Place. Like people just munching on their popcorn and like talking. I'm like, shut up! You're gonna get us all killed. So like, because that's like that kind of going back to like the whole Midnight Experience, like that when that first Quiet Place movie came out, like that was like the one time where everyone was quiet throughout the entire movie, just because the way that movie sets up, like just like the whole like these monsters will kill you if you make a sound, that just shut the audience up immediately. And I'm just like, thank you, John Krasinski, for bringing this into the world. If only you could play this before every single movie. So I'm like,
I remember because when that movie came out, there's like that part that I like where there's that little kid and he gets this stupid toy that makes all the noise. It's like, dude, you know what world you live in. Like, why is this kid given batteries and whatnot? And like the sister's like, take the batteries out, whatnot, like so on. And then he puts the batteries in, and the thing's like, woo, 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 woo. And then when that kid gets grabbed, me and Laura busted up laughing so hard in that cinema. It was like one of those like, and I remember like the audience just like turned and swooped, looked at us, and just gave us like that, the fuck is wrong with you guys? I'm like, dude, that's hilarious. She told that kid multiple times not to do that. And then he did it, and then that creature grabbed him. I could not stop laughing.
He had to grab the most obnoxious and loudest toy. Like,
yeah,
like, you could have any toy ever. It's like,
he didn't put batteries in it. They know where that. I hate to start saying it. You know where you live. You know what I mean? This is not day one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. Is I laughed so hard at that part. You know, and speaking of that, though, actually, I was down at Universal Studios for the Halloween Horror Nights. They actually have a walkthrough. That's a Quiet Place one. That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. I actually kind of want to go down there like before the end of the month and check it out. I'm not sure if I'll have time, but it's
totally worth it. Me and Cisco, we did it last year, and we're like, oh, this is really cool. And like, so we're like, let's do it again this year. And we do the thing where you got to get the VIP passes, or else I don't think you could really get anything done down there without it. So that does make the price a little bit more, but like, man, you know, you go in there. We never waited longer than 5 minutes maximum, and you could just go through all that stuff. And you know, they had a Texas Chainsaw Massacre one that was really cool. They had that Quiet Place one. There's a Ghostbusters one too for the Frozen Empires. Speaking of your poster in the background,
oh yeah, they're right behind me.
You know, so there's like a scary Ghostbusters haunted house. You know, and then there was a handful of other ones too. They had a lot of Purge stuff too, and I was really going like, is there a new Purge movie coming out? They're really doubling down on this Purge everywhere.
Is there a TV show coming out?
Maybe that's what it was, because I mean, like there was like 3 different Purge things kind of going on. They converted the Waterworld play over to a Purge play. It was actually pretty sweet though. It was all violent and so on, and they had cool like special effects, and light show since it was at nighttime. But then
it's just Universal just predicting what the selection's gonna.
Well, because they did use a lot of that Purge anarchy type stuff, where like it has like the Uncle Sam looking things and like all the American flags.
You mean? Is it?
Yeah, or Electioneer. Maybe that's what it was called. But like the third one. Mm-hmm. So they had a lot of that. I mean, the theme was like the Blumhouse theme, of course, but that Purge was definitely utilized a lot. So I just kept made me wonder, like, because it always feels like every single thing in there generally is like not all of them are tied to something, but like it's kind of like what are they trying to push? Is there a new movie coming out in cinema? Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's the 40th anniversary, so there's mostly always like a reason to why everything is. Every once in a while, there's some random ones that I think they're just there to be like, we have a 10th spot to fill up. Get creative.
Right. Yeah. Those Purge movies, they all kind of blur together for me.
I sadly have never seen them. I have this like 10-pack collection of like, I think it's just a handful of those Blumhouse horror movies, and I think there's like 3 Purge ones in there. You know that one where you like buy it for like $5 and you're like, one of these days I'll watch this. Never have in years, but one of these days, yeah, you can't beat the price. Come on, they're practically giving it away. But one of these days I'll get to it. But there was some neat stuff. If you get a chance, that Halloween Horror Nights is sweet. If not, even next year probably we'll have something real cool.
Yeah, I definitely need to. I think the last time I went to Universal Studios was a year and a half ago. I definitely need to go back there and check it out. But I think Six Flags starts their what's it called? I think it's the Horror Fest for them or whatever.
Yeah, they got something going on there.
That's a little closer than LA, like in Vallejo, but
Oh yeah, especially if you go to the Vallejo one. I was thinking Magic Mountain, but Yeah, so they got that one there. I heard that one's a nurse the other day was telling me it was just kind of okay. She's like, I thought it was gonna be cool. I don't know if it was this year. She might have been talking about the previous year or something though. And then she was like,
Six Flags.
I haven't been there for a long time. The Vallejo one, I haven't been there since like literally like high school or something like that. Yeah. But God, man, I might have been like 8th grade even like that long ago. I keep wanting to go to Magic Mountain as well too because I haven't been there forever. But yeah, fun stuff though. As I said, you gotta check that out. But yeah, Prom Night. I think it's a must watch if you're into just old school cinema and old school horror. If you're not really that deep into history, it might be one of those movies that you'll kind of watch and think kind of like, nothing special. Like, because that's the thing is like, a lot of the stuff that's kind of in this movie you've seen before if you've watched a lot of like movies past that point, you know. It's definitely the movie that got definitely aped throughout the years for sure. But historically, it's cool. I mean, you get classic Jamie Lee Curtis doing her Saturday Night Fever, you know, disco dancing. I mean, like that in itself should make you want to see the film, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I generally enjoyed Prom Night. I had a fun time with it. The original version. I just have to keep clarifying that. So, just because 2008 one it's not good, not good at all. But the 1980 version, like it's still real solid. I think for me, I think it's definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it. I'm glad that I watched it now, and I can kind of see like what the movie is like after it. We're referencing from Prom Night. But I'm not sure if I'll necessarily like watch this movie again. But I'm glad. Yeah. But I'm glad I saw it. So kind of like how like if you go to Prom Night, you're not going to go again because it's yeah. It's like if you go, you can only go once. So.
Exactly, and if you didn't go, well, here's the next best way to get that full experience. And believe me, you want the 70s experience. If you don't have Kiss posters in your school and disco dancing, like you just were missing out, you know.
Right. Do you think rich kids have Kiss posters hanging up in their bedroom? Well, probably.
No.
So never mind.
Yeah. They gotta be really into Kiss, but yeah, probably not as much. Probably none of those kids in 2008 Prom Night know who Kiss is.
No.
Those kids live in a completely different world, you know. Yeah. Actually, you know, was the one I will say, even just speaking about the old Prom Night, that was kind of surprising, but like, is the fact that like that's actually a very early setup for like a DJ, because mostly, you know, you would see bands playing like in older movies whenever that's like a school dance or something like that, and I was kind of like, oh, and in a sense, 79 movie came out in 80, but you know, movies there, it's like it's DJing, which means it's like that is like old school DJing too, like that. You know, those are like the really early days, which I know disco is pretty much the thing that kind of creates DJing in a sense. But yeah, it's like one of those ones like, you know, at that time period, it's like, what do you think they were thinking? Do you think they were going like, oh, they cheapened out and they got like a DJ and they actually couldn't buy a band or something like that? Or do you think the kids at this point are like, they're so into disco that they're like, no, that's the only way you're going to get it right is by having a DJ?
Well, no, I think it kind of leads into like what you're saying. Like how like they shot this movie in 79 and came out in 1980. This is kind of this bridges the gap between like disco fever and then going into like 80s, and it's kind of like that transitional stage from when like movies going from disco to like 80s style. So I feel like they kind of like knew kind of like where the trend was going, and and I like movies like that kind of like that can kind of predict like where like our society is going to go and kind of in terms of trends and stuff like that. So that's another little thing that I found kind of interesting little tidbits about this movie for sure. So.
Yeah, no, I just thought it was just one of those. It was just kind of a neat thing to see right there. It's like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool, because I can think of a lot of 80s movies where it's like there's a full band and everything like in there. There's even 90s movies too. Speaking of just even like Clueless, it's got the Mighty Mighty Boss tones in there and so on. Now, I grant that's supposed to be more like a different type of tie-in, but you know, you have that, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool that, you know, it's like that. That's the setup that they got going there and whatnot. But yeah.
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future. Yeah, they have full band. You know, you're too loud.
Yeah. Marty McFly just pops in the Prom Night like, hey, Your kids are gonna love this music.
Yeah, he just goes up with a DJ and just starts like spinning records and so on.
Yeah. And then he starts fading away. I'm just like, it's okay, kids. My other self is coming back.
You know, the thing, I just gotta say this. Okay, this is not totally out of the question. Okay, because it's 1985, Back to the Future. What if Marty McFly, instead of being kind of into like Huey Lewis heavy metal, instead he was like really into like Beastie Boys and so on like that, and he goes back in the 50s and starts white boy rapping. just imagine, okay, like if they're already kind of a little bit shocked by like the Eddie Van Halen guitar playing, what do you think that those like people in the 50s are gonna think about him going up there just full on straight rapping and everything?
I think you would get that same reaction shot, but it would kind of like it would lead. I don't know. I think you would get the same reaction shot, but I would love the kind of like that. If they ever remake it, which I don't want them to do, like to keep your hands away from my Back to the Future, I would kind of like to see like that twist, like in there where he's singing Beastie Boys. But,
yeah, it's just like I almost would like. I wouldn't mind seeing that as like a bit, you know, but I don't know if I want to see that as my full tilt movie, like in the sense of it. Well, I just don't want to see a remake of it. It's like it's so good as is. Why would you, you know? I mean. I'm not saying
the
that
robot chicken sketch or something.
Yeah, like that's what I mean. It'd be perfect for like that. That's like ideally what it'd be like fantastic for. But but yeah, I just started thinking about that because I'm like, it's not on the question. It's 85. That's like the one thing you always forget about. Like Beastie Boys, I think like their first album's like 84. So it's once again, it's not too weird. But yeah. Prom Night. If you want to check this bad boy out, we watched it on Prime. That's where you can go get it. At least the upside is generally during October. There's mostly like the floodgates of horror movies is kind of open, and seems like, you know, anybody who's anybody should have their movie generally pretty easily able to be watched. You know, every once in a while you get some people that want to hold their movie down. They're like, well, you know, we don't got to stream, but you could buy it for $14.99. It's like, oh, this movie's 35 years old.
I watched it on Tubi. So.
Oh, you watched it on Tubi?
Yeah. And also the remake is also on Tubi, so it's like.
Oh, so you had a double feature easily. Yeah. The only one you're missing out on is apparently there's some mysterious 1987 Prom Night movie that it's not tied in at all to this, but it's like Prom Night 2 or whatever. It's got like a subtitle as well too.
Oh, I'll have to check that one out. But the funny thing is, when I watched it on Tubi, the 2008 one. As soon as it ended, it immediately popped up the 1980 version, and Tubi is just like, "What are you doing? Watch this movie version instead." So
yeah, you picked the wrong Prom Night. Damn it!
Yeah. Go back to prom. I know you're only supposed to go to prom once, but
yeah, but you know what? Go back to 1980 prom. But yeah, check it out. It's fun. It's cool. Beyond all that good stuff, Marley, where can everybody find all your podcasting and movie shenanigans at?
Well, thanks for having me again, Spencer. I always enjoy coming on, talking about movies and Spider-Man and just kind of like BSing and just talking about like whatever. But
exactly.
If people haven't been annoyed with me by the end of this podcast, you can follow me pretty much everywhere on social media with the username at Marley Loves Film. All the links I'm assuming will be in the description. The most active places for me are Threads, Instagram, and TikTok, where I'm talking about movies there. And then people can also subscribe to my podcast pretty much anywhere where you listen to podcasts: Pocket Cast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. It's the Real Lovers Podcast. I'm currently covering all the movies in the Letterboxd Top 250. And when this episode posts, I have an M. Night Shyamalan retrospective series that I will be... it's a little mini-series that I'm starting, just going through all of M. Night Shyamalan's films. So yeah, subscribe to the Real Lovers Podcast for all of that movie goodness. And yeah.
Oh, yeah, you definitely got to make sure you do that. But beyond that, you can always go to oldmanorange.com where you'll find more podcasts, comic books like Pizza Boys, all the old animation videos and what have yous. Till then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Marley Silverbrand.
And we'll see you some other time.